Hi, welcome back. This is Andrew Sears again, and you're in week 2 of our fundraising course with City Vision University. And this week we're going to be talking about constituent maps and developing your case for support. So let me just talk a little bit about what the constituent map assignment is about. So the idea, and this is a diagram that comes out of the book, and the idea is you want to have different concentric circles, right? And at the core, you want to list, who are your strongest supporters, right? So this is the leadership of the organization or the management, your major donors, and your board, right? So then you're going to have other constituents. These might be your clients, members, your core donors or other general donors, other employees, not, necessarily the management or leadership or volunteers. And then, your next tier, and this is just an example. You'd have to think through your organization. Maybe, we run a school, so alumni could be, former students, right? So alumni could be one of the core in here, right? Whereas for this organization, volunteers are closer to them than the former participants, and former donors and former board members. And then you're like people with similar interest in the organization's universe, right? So what we're going to have you do is do something similar. So we have a constituency map template that looks like this. I'm actually going to go ahead and pull up the template. So in this week, we have a document, and we put it in Microsoft Word format because you're going to paste this into your final project. And what you're going to do is for your organization, and you could figure out, and I just put these two as examples, but what you would do is you would make a copy of these items. So you can do that, by right clicking and doing copy, or, control C, whatever. And then, we're going to say, okay, after the board and staff, we're going to do the next tier as alumni. And then, another tier and another tier. So for us, we support a lot of Christians who serve the poor, the addicted, the underserved, and in nonprofits. So that might be this common interest thing, and then there might be just general nonprofits out here. And the idea is you want to be able to map out who is your core, who's your next tier, and for whatever your organization is, you're gonna write out your constituency map, but then part of the assignment is to talk through that and to kind of summarize that. So that's one of your assignments for this week. And ultimately, you're going to paste that into your final project, but you don't do that until week 4. So in week 4, you're going to paste that into your final project. So the next part of week 2 is talking about a case for support. And what a case for support is it's a comprehensive document that provides the foundation for all fundraising, marketing, and outreach activities. So you could use it for your website, use versions of it could be adapted to brochures, grant proposals. Whenever I first saw a case for support, and I'm more used to grant writing, I was like, this is very similar to grant writing. The difference is, than a grant, there's several differences. One is it's more generalized for a grant. So a grant is what's the case for your organization and how it matches a particular funder, right? A case for support is what's the case for your organization and how it might match the whole universe of potential supporters, right? And then you would adapt it and customize it for specific cases. But the other thing that was different between a grant proposal and a case for support was grant proposals, actually, you follow whatever format that the foundations provide. Usually it's a logical format, but a case for support, usually the order starts with, you start with the heart. What is the most important thing as you speak with a donor's heart? And then you gradually move, and add more detail, but you start with the heart. So that was helpful for me to understand why a case for support's organized. And the idea, and that's part of why the focus has to be on the cause and not the needs of the organization. So, for us, our cause is supporting those serving the poor, the addicted, and the underserved, right? That's our cause. We're not going to say, well, we really need $50,000 for, that's not a case for support, for supporting a new staff member or whatever. Our cause is we're a part of this larger movement of Christians that are serving the poor, the addicted, and the underserved, and that's the cause. So that's where we'd start. For, say, City Vision. Your organization is going to have its own cause, right? So you start with the development of why the organization was created, what cause or issue do you try to seek to solve. You try to use some data with stakeholders about, describing the problem exists. So, if you're trying to address the high school dropout, you might talk about that the dropout rate is, 12% annually. And, this is probably getting a little more technical. So, this is the data. And I think the point is that you're not Mr. Spock. You're not trying to talk just about data. You're trying to bring the heart into it. So the issue is bigger than the organization, and, you'll go into part of what's your solution to it. So, usually you're going to go through and sorry, as I was presenting this, I realized this slide was out of date. So you should at least cover these 12 things. Now, I wouldn't necessarily say this has to be the exact order that you want to use. You want to cover these 12 things. This is kind of like a checklist to make sure you've covered all these items. But what's important is that you put it in an order that is persuasive. So the whole thing is, if someone reads this document and they only read the first page, you would want to move their heart with the first page. And then gradually, as you get to the end, you're going to move more of their head. So these are the things that you want to make sure that you've covered in your case for support. Now, the other thing is the types of cases, and let me just add, John Frank covers this a little bit more in detail. And I think that the order that he suggests is probably a better order that you want to use. The other thing I would say, read the case for support samples in this course. A lot of them are really good. You want to get something that looks like that. You're trying to persuade people. You're trying to change, people's hearts. So this is a little more like a sermon rather than like a cold lecture, right? You're trying to motivate people. But you do need some data. So the types of cases, so you could have an internal case for support. And often if an organization has a case statement, that's what it's going to be. It's usually not going to put that on a website. You could have external cases for support that, on your fundraising materials website, you could have a case statement. Usually that is a shorter version. And a case expression, basically anytime you're repurposing a case statement into anything to try to persuade people, that's what's called a case expression. So hopefully that's helpful. I think the key thing to remember on case statements is comprehensive document that's going to motivate people to support your organization, usually primarily through fundraising. So if you have any questions, ask your faculty. Thanks a lot.